Hello and welcome. My name is Hilda, and I'm a librarian in the Office of Civics and Community Services here at the Los Angeles Public Library. Today's presentation is called Your Student Loan Guide, Find Relief, Reduce Payments, and Plan Your Future, brought to you by Sierra Swan. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about Sierra. Sierra Swan is a fellow attorney in the Consumer Rights and Economic Justice Project at Public Counsel. Under the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation Student Loan Empowerment Network, Sierra assists low-income student loan borrowers across a wide range of student loan matters through direct legal services, community education, and systemic advocacy. Sierra is currently assisting clients access relief through affordable repayment plans, borrower defense to repayment applications, and total and permanent disability discharges. As a first-generation college graduate and student loan borrower herself, Sierra is driven by a passion to make education accessible to all. And we will have a Q&A after the presentation. So please make sure to type your questions in the chat box and they will be answered during the Q&A. As an FYI, this presentation is being recorded and will be available for viewing on the library's YouTube channel, which we can put on here. Thank you. Now, I will hand it over to Sierra.
Thanks so much, Hilda. Thank you all so much for joining me today for this student loan presentation. I know it is a wild world, especially in when it comes to student loans. So hopefully you can get some information, get some clarity, and some tools so you feel empowered to manage your own student loans. So let's get started. All right, so a little bit about Public Counsel. As Hilda mentioned, I'm an attorney at Public Counsel. And Public Counsel is a nonprofit interest law firm dedicated to advancing civil rights and economic justice, as well as amplifying the power of our clients through comprehensive legal advocacy. Public Counsel has many sub-projects, and I work specifically in the Consumer Rights and Economic Justice Project, which, as the name suggests, aims to advance racial and economic justice by representing and advocating for individuals and families who are low income to improve their financial futures, safeguard intergenerational wealth, address systemic inequalities, and oppose institutions and companies that take advantage of the communities we serve. And as Hilda mentioned in the introduction, I'm also work as a part of the Student Loan Empowerment Network. So the Student Loan Empowerment Network was created by Gavin Newsom's budget. And what that did is create, as the name suggests, a network of legal aid and other nonprofit organizations to assist borrowers in helping with their student loan situations. So if you have questions about your student loans, you want to be connected with a specialist with a legal aid organization, or you just want to get someone on the phone and have some answers to your questions, the Student Loan Empowerment Network is available to you. And this is a service available to borrowers throughout the state of California. So we have a network. I'm in LA, but we have partners that work all across the state. So you can visit studentloanhelp.dfpi.ca.gov. All right, so the agenda for today's presentation. First, we're going to discuss the types of student loans. Then we will discuss managing repayment of federal student loans. Then we will discuss federal student loan delinquency and default. And finally, discuss forgiveness and discharge. So just a brief overview. There are 45 million Americans who have student loan debt. This is the second largest consumer debt in the United States. Points if you guess number one. I don't know if anyone wants to drop it in the chat, but that would be medical debt. But student loan debt impacts people of all ages, including a large number of older Americans. So if you have student loan debt and you are struggling with it, you are confused about what to do, just remember that you are not alone. Okay, so the first step here is to discuss the types of student loans. And there are really two different buckets. There are federal student loans and private student loans. So we'll get into the details and the differences of those two. All right, so with federal student loans, this is money borrowed from the federal government to pay for your education. You apply for federal student loans via FAFSA. Oftentimes, a cosigner is not required. Interest rates are fixed, and there are a lot of special protections and benefits that federal student loan borrowers receive. For example, offering affordable repayment plans, those loan forgiveness and discharge programs. Um, and there's also another big point of difference between federal and private student loans, and that is the statute of limitations. And that's just a legal word that says when a legal action to collect on the debt can be taken. So with federal student loans, there is no statute of limitations, meaning that the federal government can take action to collect on a debt. There's no time limit. Where for private student loans, there is a specific time frame that must be taken, and that varies state to state. But also, with private loans, they are issued by a private lender, such as a bank. Common types of private student loans are from Sallie Mae. You may also get a student loan from a credit union, or even schools can be lenders of private student loans. Now, typically, private student loans require a cosigner. And unlike federal student loans, they are not required to offer affordable repayment plans, loan forgiveness, or cancellation programs and other options. So there are very big differences between the two. Now, if you're unsure, maybe you went to school a really long time ago, or it's been a while since you have checked in on your student loans and you're unsure if you have federal or private. To find out if you have federal student loans, you can create and log on to studentaid.gov. So if you do have federal student loans, those loans should appear on your studentaid.gov account. You can also check the promissory note or the monthly bill, and that should give you some tips as to if you have a private or a federal student loan. Another great way is to check your credit report. So you can get your credit report for free at annualcreditreport.com. And unlike what the name says, you can get this more than once a year. And like I said, a big difference between federal and private student loans is whether a cosigner is required or not. So if you see your loan documents and you see that there is a cosigner, then the loan is likely private. All right, so now that you know if you have a federal or a private student loan, we can discuss managing repayment. And this section is going to specifically address repayment options for federal student loans, as private lenders can set those terms individually. All right, so step one to managing repayment is identifying the type or types of student loans that you have. So these are some of the different types of federal student loans that are out there. If you went to school very recently, then you likely have direct federal student loans. Those can be subsidized or unsubsidized. If you are a parent borrower, so you borrowed loans on behalf of your children to attend school, then you likely have a direct parent plus loan. And if you went to school a while ago, then you may have older type of loans that are no longer issued, such as the federal family education loans or the FFEL loans. And if you are unsure of the types of federal loans that you have, you can again visit your studentaid.gov account and view your loan details. So here you see this is a screenshot of what your account login looks like. So this is the dashboard. And you'll see in the red circle, there is a view details button. So that's going to give you a loan breakdown. which looks like this. So this is an example that has a lot of different types of loans for folks to see. So you'll be able to see your loan types being broken down, and then that will allow you to move on to the next step, which is assessing the repayment options that are available to you. Because each type of loan has specific guardrails, restrictions in place, and not all repayment plans are open to all different loan types. All right, another important step here is you want to identify the status of your federal student loans. So if you are in repayment, you are likely in a repayment plan, and we will get into the details of these repayment plans in the coming slides. Or you may be in a deferment or forbearance, meaning that the repayment on your loan is postponed. And we will be talking about this later in the presentation as well. Or you may see that your loans are in default. And default occurs after 270 days or 9 months of missed scheduled payments. And we will dive into default, what it means, and how to get out of it later in the presentation. All right, so now that you have all of that information, it's time to determine which repayment plan is right for you. So here we have the types of repayment plans, and we will discuss these. There's been a lot of movement on some of these plans, specifically the Saving on a Valuable Education Plan, or SAVE plan. So we will discuss the updates with that. But generally, the repayment plans are in 2 buckets. So the first one is a group of plans that calculate your loan payment based on a fixed payoff in a fixed period of time. So for example, the standard plan. This is the plan. If you don't enroll for any other plan, your loans will be placed on. So this calculates your monthly payment amount to pay off your loan in 10 years. So that can be a really high monthly payment. Often, if you have just graduated from school, your loans are just entering repayment, you may get that first bill and see that loan amount and think, wow, that payment is super, super high. It could be really scary. But that's because, if you don't enroll in another plan, you're put on standard. So that's where you're seeing that high number. There are other plans that calculate on this fixed period. So for example, the graduated plan and the extended plan. Now, none of these plans take into account your income or your family size. Again, it's just based on payoff in a certain period of years. All right, now we are discussing the income-driven repayment plans, also known as the IDR plans. So IDR is an umbrella term that fits various different types of income-driven repayment plans. Like the other plans we just discussed, IDR plans do take into account your income and your family size in determining your loan payment amount. So a lot of times that means that your payment is going to be lower than on the first group of plans. However, not everyone has the option to apply for these plans. Again, it depends on your loan type. So let's start with SAVE. And I mentioned this one is a lot going on with this plan. It's currently tied up in litigation. Borrowers were able to apply for this plan, but currently it is not open to new enrollees. So if you are not already on SAVE, you cannot apply to be on SAVE. And so right now, if you are a borrower on the SAVE plan, your payments are paused because of this litigation that is ongoing. Not sure when a resolution will occur. We're hoping soon, but really it's up to the courts right now. But a plan that is open to new enrollees is Pay As You Earn, or the Pay plan. But again, this is only available to direct loan borrowers. You also have to meet certain requirements to be considered a new borrower under this plan. So in order to qualify, you can't have had an outstanding loan balance before October of 2007, and you have had to taken out a new direct loan on or after October 2011. So again, if you have an older type of loan, if you took out loans before then it's likely you are not eligible for this plan. Next is the income-based repayment plan, also known as IBR. Again, only direct loans are eligible for this plan, and payments are capped at 10% of your income. And as it notes, Parent Plus loans are ineligible, so they are not considered a direct loan. If you have Parent Plus loans, the only type of repayment plan available to you right now is income contingent repayment plan. And there are certain other requirements that you have to meet to be able to enroll in that plan. And it might involve consolidating your loans as well. But for this plan, payments are capped at 20% of your income. And there is possibility of loan forgiveness, although that has been tied up in the courts and litigation as well. But those right now are the IDR plans available. So that's Pay As You Earn, income-based repayment, and income contingent repayment. All right, so you might be wondering, how do I know what my payment will be if I want to enroll in one of these plans? Well, federalstudentaid.gov has a loan repayment calculator and loan simulator. So again, if you log into your account, you would be able to access this and it will take your loan info and give you a calculation. Now, recently, we've noticed that this calculator, the simulator, has been a little glitchy. It doesn't seem to be as up to date just because of all the changes currently happening. So here is another option just to get an estimate of your loan payments under the various plans. So this is EdCap, which is a nonprofit organization. It provides various resources to student loan borrowers, and they have this calculator on their website that you can use just to get a rough estimate. Again, it's not an exact calculation, but you would be able to see more or less your payments under the various plans. And as you can see here, you can see it under IBR, Pay, and Save, although again, Save is not accepting any new enrollees. All right, so you have done your research, you've done the loan simulators and the calculators, and you are ready to apply for an IDR plan. How do you do that? Well, first, you want to gather your income information, again, because they're going to calculate your loan payment based on your income and your family size. So typically, this could be your most recent tax return. But if you haven't filed taxes this year or your income has changed a lot since you filed your last tax return, you can also submit other forms of documentation, such as pay stubs or even a letter from your employer listing your gross pay. So gross pay, that's before any deductions. If you submit these other types of documentation, so other than a tax return, you want to make sure that they're no older than 90 days from the date of your application. So they have to be recent. You also, again, if you're submitting documentation other than a tax return, you want to write how often you're receiving this payment. So it could be twice per month, every other week, weekly. You just want to include that in the forms that you upload. So if the documentation is not available or you want to explain your income, you can attach a signed statement explaining each source of income you have and giving the name and address of the income. So once you have all of that, you know the plan that you want to apply for, you can apply online via studentaid.gov. And this is the fastest way to apply for an IDR plan. You can also print out the application, sign it, and upload it directly to your loan servicer. Although that will likely take longer, but it is an option if that is best for you. I will note that right now there is quite a backlog in processing of IDR plan applications. And so it will take longer, maybe than we all would like. But I think they are slowly working through those. Once you submit an IDR application, your payments should be paused pending the processing of that application. So what I would recommend is after submitting it, just check with your loan servicer that they've received that application for processing and that your payments are paused pending your application being processed. Okay, so let's talk about deferment and forbearance. These are ways that you can pause your payments on your student loans if certain circumstances apply. So deferments temporarily pauses payments on student loans, but it's not available if you are in default. So again, that's why knowing your loan status is really important. Some examples of deferments that are available is if you are undergoing cancer treatment, if you are experiencing an economic hardship. So for example, if you recently lost your job or experienced your hours at your work were reduced significantly, so you can't make your payments right now, you can apply for an economic hardship deferment. Also, if you are performing a qualifying military service, or if you are a Parent Plus borrower and your student is currently enrolled in school, you can ask for those payments to be paused while they are in school. And a forbearance. So again, it does also temporarily pause or reduce payments on your student loans. And these are available even if you are in default. And they can be used as a way to avoid default. And again, we'll be talking about default in a lot more detail later on. But some examples of forbearances that are available, if you are experiencing financial difficulties, if you are serving in AmeriCorps, if you're working at a medical or dentalship internship or residency, or serving in the National Guard. And those are just a few. There are a lot more. If you want to read about all of the deferment and forbearance options that are available, you can go to studentaid.gov. Something else I wanted to note about the difference between deferment and forbearances. So, and again, this is why knowing the type of student loan that you have is important, because if you have subsidized direct student loans, you can request a deferment, and during that deferment, interest will not accrue. However, if you have unsubsidized direct loans, interest will continue to accrue even in a deferment. However, during a forbearance, interest is going to accrue on all types of direct loans and is often added to the principal when you start repayment. So again, just things to consider if you are looking into those options. All right, so how to request a deferment or forbearance. You can find all of the forms and applications on studentaid.gov. For these, you're going to fill out the application and you want to submit it directly to your loan servicer. So the difference between a loan servicer and a loan holder, if you have federal student loans, the loan holder is the federal government, the Department of Education. Now, your loan servicer is the company that is handling your student loans. So they're managing the billing, they're managing the payments. You're going to make payments to your loan servicer. And they also process these types of applications. So loan servicers, the big ones are Mohila, although Mohila does manage private student loans as well. Nelnet, Aidvantage, Ed Financial, and there are a few others. And if you have loans that are in default, your loan servicer is going to be Default Resolution Group. So there are quite a few out there. All right, so I've been mentioning it. Let's talk about it. Federal student loan delinquency and default. So what is it and how to get out of it? All right, so default is kind of the end of a process. So first is delinquency. And delinquency occurs one day after a missed payment. And your account will remain delinquent until you repay the past due amount or make other arrangements, such as a deferment forbearance or enrolling in an income-driven repayment plan or other type of repayment plan. Now, when a student loan is delinquent, it is not immediately reported on your credit reports. So after 90 days of missed payment, that's about 3 months, that is when your loan status is reported to credit bureaus. So you may see a change to your credit score if you have missed those 90 days of payments. But even at that point, your loans still aren't in default. It's only after 9 months or 270 days of missed payments that your loans go into default. So if this happens, there are consequences of loans in default, which we will discuss. But you want to contact the organization that notified you of the default as soon as possible. So you can explain your situation, you can discuss your options with them, and make a plan. So often, if you act very quickly, if you make repayment arrangements soon, you may be able to resolve the default quickly and take care of it. All right, so what are the consequences of default? And again, this applies to loans in default, not loans that are delinquent. So if your loans are in default, the federal government has a lot of really powerful tools to collect on student loans. And recently, I know that the new administration announced that they are resuming collections on defaulted loans. And so these are some of the ways that they can do that and the effects of that. So like I mentioned, if your loan is in default, it's going to be serviced likely by Default Resolution Group. And they are a debt collector. So they are allowed to charge fees. That's going to increase the balance of your loan. And unfortunately, borrowers are often subject to aggressive and illegal collection tactics as a part of the collection efforts. At this point, default is going to be reported to credit agencies, so you will be seeing the default on your credit report. If you're in default, you cannot take out any new federal loans or grants, and you are not eligible for income-driven repayment plans. So in order to apply for an IDR plan, you need to resolve the default to be able to apply. And the collection tools that the federal government has, so they can seize your wages, they can seize federal benefits, as well as tax refunds. And they can do all of this without a judgment, without a court order. So the fact that your loan is in default allows them to try to collect the amount that's owed. Now, if you are concerned, if you think your loan is in default and you are concerned about these types of offsets or garnishments, and wondering if your loan is on the list to go to collections for them to try to collect, you can call the Treasury Offset Program, the TOP line, at 800-304-3107. It's an automated line, and that will tell you whether or not your loan is on the list for collections. Okay, so how do we get out of default once a loan has gone into default? Well, there are 3 different ways that we can discuss: loan rehabilitation, loan consolidation, and repayment in full. All right, so what is loan rehabilitation? Basically, it is when you are able to get your loan back in good standing, so the default status is removed and collection of payments, whether that's through garnishment or offsets, will stop. But what does this entail? Well, first you have to agree to make a series of 9 voluntary, reasonable, and affordable monthly payments. Now, the reasonable and affordable payment is determined by the loan holder. So that's going to be the Department of Education. And these payments, once you agree to make these payments under the rehabilitation program, they must be made within 20 days of the due date. And all 9 payments must be made during a period of 10 consecutive months. So you must make them as they are due. Otherwise, your loan will not be successfully rehabilitated and will still be in default. If you go through this rehabilitation process, you will regain eligibility for benefits that were available to you before default. So deferments, forbearances, you can enroll in an income-driven repayment plan, and you'll be able to receive student aid, federal student aid again. So if you want to learn more about this process, you can go to studentaid.gov. You can also contact your loan servicer for more information about this to get this process started on loan rehabilitation. I will note, if you apply for the rehabilitation and they calculate your monthly payment and it still is unaffordable to you, there are ways to try to get that payment lower. And that would include filling out a form detailing all of your expenses and basically stating, I have all of these other expenses and this is why this payment is too high. And they may recalculate it based on the information that you provide them. Okay, another option is loan consolidation. And this is when you take out essentially a new loan that repays the older loan. So it's similar to refinancing, except with a loan consolidation, it's still a federal loan and you retain all of those federal benefits and protections that we've been discussing. So the pros of loan consolidation: it combines multiple loans into one with one monthly bill. So if you have been in and out of school, if you've attended multiple programs, have a lot of different loans, then this may be a good option for you, because if you do consolidate, then you'll have one loan and that's just what you'll have to deal with. So a little easier. It could also lower your monthly payment, because if you consolidate, you will have access to income-driven repayment plans and more options to repay. And if you do have a loan with a variable interest rate, if you consolidate, that will be switched to a fixed interest rate. So then your interest rate is not going to change. Now, the cons of consolidation. So it may increase your repayment period. It's also there's a process called capitalization, where any unpaid interest is added to the principal amount of your student loan. And you can only consolidate once to get out of default. And a big piece of this is your counts towards income-driven repayment forgiveness. Now, as I stated, IDR forgiveness is tied up in this litigation, but you still, we don't know the outcome of that, right? So if you consolidate, it's basically like taking a new loan. And if you have been paying in a plan and an IDR plan for a long time before you defaulted, you have built up a lot of counts, a lot of credits towards forgiveness. Now, if you consolidate, you risk losing all of the counts and all of those progress. So it's really important to think critically, to know your loan details before making this type of decision. All right, so to consolidate a defaulted student loan into a new direct consolidation loan, you must either agree to repay the new direct consolidation loan under an income-driven repayment plan, or make 3 consecutive voluntary, on-time, full monthly payments on the defaulted loan before you consolidate. So you can complete and submit this application, studentaid.gov, or you can do it via paper and upload it. So after you submit your application, then it will go into processing. Again, there are some delays on this, so it may take a while, and just be in contact with your loan holder, your loan servicer, to make sure that they are aware that it is processing. Okay, another option, I want to mention it. It's not always available to folks, but if you are able to, you can just repay your loan in full, and then you will not have to worry about the defaulted loan. All right, now talking about what maybe everyone is excited about, the loan forgiveness and discharge options. So there are a lot of different types of programs right now. There has been rumblings with the new administration about changes to some of these programs, but currently these do still exist. So take advantage of them if you are able. The big one, I think, is Public Service Loan Forgiveness, or PSLF. Now, this is a program that forgives the remaining balance on your direct loans after you've made the equivalent of 120 qualifying monthly payments while working full-time at a government or not-for-profit organization. So 120, that's typically about 10 years, but it's about the number of payments, not the amount of each payment. But to qualify for PSLF, you must be enrolled in an income-driven repayment plan, and you must certify your employment. So the Department of Education does not know where you work all the time. They're not keeping track of that. What you need to do is to go online to studentaid.gov and put in your employment information, your dates of employment, your employment contact, and then that will be sent to your employer, who will certify that you have worked for them during that period of time that you put in the application. So we recommend doing this yearly, or if you change jobs, do it right after your job that you left or at the beginning of your new one. And so that way you just have a consistent count and you stay organized. There is also forgiveness if you are a teacher and you meet certain qualifications. And then again, as I've been discussing, the income-driven repayment forgiveness. So this is a feature of Save Pay and ICR plans. That's currently paused. However, if you are enrolled in IBR, or the income-based repayment plan, they said they are still processing those, so you should still be able to apply. And more types of discharge programs. So one I definitely want to highlight here is the Total and Permanent Disability Discharge Program, otherwise known as TPD. So this discharges federal loans if you can show that you have a disability that severely limits your ability to work, both now and in the future. So this disability can be mental, it can be physical, and in most cases, you will have to provide specific types of proof of your disability. There are different ways to qualify to show that you meet the standard to have your loans discharged under the TPD program. One is through the VA. So if you are a veteran and you have met a certain disability level within the VA, then you should be notified that you qualify. In the past, this has been automatic, where the VA connects with the Department of Ed, and they're able to identify the veterans who are eligible for this, and they will receive an email about that eligibility. Also, if you receive Social Security disability and meet certain requirements of receiving those benefits, you may be eligible. There's also a third way to get this type of discharge, and that's through a medical professional certification. And this is when a medical professional, and this can be a doctor, it could be a nurse practitioner, it can be a certified psychologist. So it's a pretty wide range of medical professionals that can fill out a form basically saying that you meet the standard for this discharge program. And then that is uploaded to studentaid.gov, or you can mail it directly. and then they will evaluate that for you. So that is an option for folks, and I definitely recommend looking into it if you think you may qualify. Other types of discharges, some are based on school misconduct. So closed school discharge. If your school closed while you were enrolled or soon after you withdrew, you may be eligible for a discharge under this program. There's also the borrower defense to repayment discharge. So this is an option for borrowers who attended school because of specific statements, misrepresentations, lies that the school told them about its educational services, financial charges, or employability of its graduates. So we see a lot of this with these for-profit schools that have made these promises to students about the education they'll receive or their likelihood of getting employment after completing the program. This is a very lengthy application because you have to show that the school misled you, misrepresented things to you that were the key decision why you chose to enroll. So it requires a lot of documentation. And currently there is a big backlog of these applications. So if you do submit one, I would not expect it to be resolved quickly. It is taking quite a while to get a resolution on these borrower defense to repayment applications. However, if you do submit one, your loan should be then placed in a forbearance while that decision is pending. So again, if you submit it, your student loan payments should then be paused pending the outcome of the decision. And lastly, there's also a false certification discharge. So this is if you have loans in your name that you did not authorize, that you did not consent to, or if you took out loans, for example, you didn't have a high school diploma or a GED when you enrolled in college, and that would make you ineligible. Or again, someone who worked at your college signed your name on loan documents without your knowledge or consent. Or you were signed up for a college program to train for a job that you would not have been able to get because of some type of disqualifying status. So for example, if you had a criminal record and the school knew about it, signed you up anyway, and you would never have been able to qualify for that type of position because of this other status. Or someone else used your identity. So your identity was stolen, or it was used, again, without your consent to take out student loans. You can apply for a false certification discharge. All right, so that's everything. Thank you all so much for hanging with me. And now's the time for questions. So feel free to put any questions in the chat.
All right, so I'm back for frequently asked questions. I don't see any questions at the moment, so we'll do frequently asked questions. So let's start with the first one. I'm enrolled in the SAVE repayment plan. What's happening with my loans?
Yes, so SAVE. So many people are enrolled in SAVE right now. And like I said, it is tied up in this litigation. So while that is ongoing, if you are enrolled in SAVE, your payments are paused, meaning you do not have any payments due. Also, your interest on your loans is not accruing. So it should not be accruing. If you see instances of that, I would contact your loan servicer very quickly because that should not be happening. But if you are in SAVE, you're not getting credit towards income-driven repayment forgiveness, and you are not getting credit towards public service loan forgiveness. So if those are things that you are close to or wanting to get credit for, you may want to consider switching to a new IDR plan. But right now, again, no payments due, no interest accruing, and no credits.
Okay. Next question is, I just graduated and I have student loans. Do I need to do anything?
Yes, so if you just graduated, which it's early June right now, so I think we've got probably a fair amount of folks in this position. If you have federal student loans, typically when you graduate, you should have completed or are required to complete loan exit counseling. And what this does is lets you know the balance of your loans, and you can also or should be able to apply for a repayment plan for your loans right then. So what happens when you graduate, if you have federal student loans, is you go into a 6-month grace period. So you won't have any payment due for 6 months after you graduate. So if you, in your loan exit counseling, sign up for a payment plan, then you will be enrolled, and that's the payment plan that will calculate your monthly payment when you come out of the grace period. If you don't do that ahead of time, you can still do it, but you have to wait until your grace period ends to enroll in a repayment plan. So if you just graduated, you have this 6-month period, but definitely plan for when that 6 months is up so you are not caught off guard.
Okay, loan exit counseling. Last question. I've been contacted by a company saying that they can help me with my student loans. Is this legit?
So I would say likely not. And the reason for that is with federal student loans, at least, all of these things I've been discussing, applying for repayment plans, forbearances, deferments, consolidation, getting out of default, all of these things you can do on your own for free. So there's no cost to do any of these things that we've been discussing to manage your student loans. So if you have been contacted by a company and they are saying they can get your loans forgiven, often we see companies saying that we can get you a lower payment or your loans canceled if you pay a monthly fee to manage your loans. I would really caution people from signing up with those types of companies, again, because all of these things can be done for free. And you can access those on studentaid.gov. You can also contact your loan servicer if you have questions about it. But there's nothing that they can do that you can't do yourself or find assistance with. And again, I recommend the Student Loan Empowerment Network if you have further questions about that, or if you do get an email and you're like, I really am unsure about this, you can call them and get assistance as well.
All right. So all these things can be done for free. So that's a reminder to everybody.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we've reached the end of our FAQs, and I wanted to remind everybody that this presentation was recorded. So if you missed any part of it, then just please make sure to make your way over to the library's YouTube channel. There it is. And other than that, have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you for
Thank you all so
joining.
much.